Another day, another Kyle Busch video. Now, earlier today, we uploaded another video discussing Texas Motor Speedway and the strong likelihood a reliable source saying that it could be destroyed and reconfigured possibly to maybe an Atlanta Superspeedway type of track. If you want more information on that, click the card on the top of your screen. It'll take you to that video. But if you've already watched that, good job on you. Now let's talk about Kyle Busch. Another week, another video to discuss about Kyle Busch and his contract negotiations. Now, this time it's different. In the videos that we talked about previously with Kyle Busch, and since this whole conversation started with Kyle Busch and contract talks, it had always been about Kyle Busch, the driver, and how he feels. But this past weekend at Richmond, we got Kyle Busch, the father, Kyle Busch, the owner, about discussing what his future is going to look like. This is what he said.
But to me, this situation right now is very important to me as well as Kyle Busch Motorsports, because wherever this next place is, whether it's Joe Gibbs Racing or whoever, I would like it to not have to go through this again, right? I've got 6, 7, maybe 8 more years. If I play all this out perfectly, Brexton and we share a truck when he turns 16 years old, when he's 16 and 17, and then it's his when he's 18, and I'm done, I'm out. You know what I mean? Like, that's the perfect play. Obviously, he's pretty talented. He wins a lot. He wins more than I do. I hear about it every day. So the runway for him, if you want to look at it that way, is 30 years plus. So, he can carry on this legacy a hell of a lot longer than I will.
So basically, he wants to do something that LeBron James is going to do with the NBA. Before he retires, he wants to play at least one season in the NBA with his son on the same team. That's what Kyle Busch is basically saying. He wants to share a truck team, a truck ride, race with his son, Brexton. Brexton is 7 years old, and in NASCAR, I believe if you're 16, you can run the truck series at tracks, I believe, a mile and a half or shorter. I think that's how it works. But this kind of fits around into Kyle Busch's era, or rank where he says he wants to retire. He wants to drive for another 7, 8 years, which would put him around the mid-40s range, which is where we see NASCAR drivers retire nowadays. That is around that era where Brexton Busch can come up, they can share a truck ride, and then when he's 18, Brexton gets the full truck ride, Kyle Busch then retires and goes into full ownership mode. And yeah, that interview was very different because, again, all the time when we've heard about Kyle Busch has only been about him. Kyle Busch, him, what he thinks, what we think he's going to happen. Well, now we have to stand, hey, this is two sides to every story. There's like one Kyle Busch, but then there's many things that revolve around him with this decision. Because Kyle Busch is so heavily tied to Toyota with Kyle Busch Motorsports, basically, anytime a contract is being brought up, Kyle Busch Motorsports ranks at the top, if not number one on that list. Because it's one thing if you're making a decision based on something that only affects you. With Kyle, not only does it affect him, but it affects the entire team at KBM Motorsports. You have hundreds of employees you have to work with, especially when you consider the fact that he's been a Toyota lifer since Kyle Busch Motorsports began. You spent all this time working with Toyota, and now all of a sudden, very late into the season, if Kyle were to leave Toyota for Ford or Chevrolet, you then have to completely 180 your entire operation. Maybe have to get new people, start working with a completely new manufacturer, which would be some growing pains to get used to once you've been spending your entire time with one team, and then all of a sudden have to switch to another. There are so many things that revolve around Kyle Busch with this contract decision, which is why Toyota is very, very desperate to keep him.
Toyota's resolve hasn't changed. Kyle Busch, love him, hate him, is part of our family, and we are trying every avenue that we have to keep him in a Toyota going forward. And so it's been a bizarre and challenging problem, and something that none of us thought we would be faced with this late in this season. But here we are, and that's about all I can share right now relative to Kyle. Let me be clear: there is absolutely a chance that we can keep him, mm-hmm. and that's why we are working as hard as we are, because we don't want to look back and say, if only we would have considered this, or if only we would have considered that, and so. We are considering there's nothing that's not on the table.
Listen, I am no body language expert or anything like that, but when a guy goes, tells me he's very stressed. He is very, very stressed, exhausted about this whole situation. There is a chance, he says, that they can keep him. There is a chance, but doesn't sound very confident. Actually, never mind. He doesn't sound confident at all. The way how he responded to that question. Times are rough with Toyota and Kyle Busch. And again, I just have this feeling he's going to go to Ford or Chevrolet. I just don't see him returning. With how long the discussions have been. If they had a chance to keep him, you gotta sign him by now. Like, you got to do this by now. You can't just keep pushing it farther or longer into the season. And especially when you consider the fact that it looks like only the 18 is up for grabs. I know there was speculation that maybe the 45 car at 2311 Racing could be up for grabs when you consider of the fact of Kurt Busch and his concussion. You know, there are, speculations that maybe he may retire at the end of the 2022 season. And that was actually brought up with Kyle.
Him and I just had a conversation where, he's like, a Pocono qualifying crash isn't necessarily the best way of going out, and I'm like, you're 1,000% right.
Which I agree. It wouldn't be the best way to go out. But again, it all depends on how your brain feels. If you're 100% ready and you want to keep doing this, then fine. We know that the 45 car is Kurt's for as long as he wants to. So we know he has that. So Kurt is in no rush. But I do find it interesting that Kurt is saying that and Kyle's being like, yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree that wouldn't be the best way to go out. Doesn't outright confirm that Kurt is coming back next year. I don't want to speculate on that. But it does tend to sway that Kurt's goal is to maybe come back. That's the goal. That's the plan. That's a possibility. It's not outright confirmed, but when you look at how the conversation went by Kurt, it tells me he's tending to sway into that direction. So either 18 or bust. We're not even going to discuss 2311 Racing. Bubba is secure for the future. And again, Kurt, I just don't see him in the 45. I don't see Kyle taking Kurt's ride in the 45 car. So it's either 18 or bust. But yeah, that was a very interesting interview by Kyle. But in no means am I suggesting that Kyle has lost the drive to win, the will to win. Kyle is tied with Kevin Harvick for 9th on the all-time win list. I believe it's 9th for most wins at 60. He is 16 wins away from Dale Earnhardt. And I know that is something that's on Kyle's mind. He wants to win more races, wants to compete for more championships, wants to be remembered for being one of the best in NASCAR. He wants to be remembered for that. However, Kyle also wants to focus on his legacy when he is done driving. Focus on his family, on his team, Kyle Busch Motorsports, and his son specifically, Brexton Busch. That's why he says he wants to stay and share a truck ride with Brexton. He wants to stay in the series, or at least stay in NASCAR for as long as he can to keep that legacy going. But again, that question is always going to be, is Kyle's future, and I believe whatever decision is going to be, wherever he goes in 2023, that's where he's going to retire. I just don't see him having to deal with any more of these contract negotiations. Wherever Kyle Busch goes in 2023 is where he will retire, I feel like. The question is it at the 18 at Joe Gibbs, the 16 at Colleague, or the 41, or the 10 at Stuart Haas? I'm gonna stick with my gut. He ain't coming back to Toyota. But yeah, that's it for me. What are your thoughts? Tell me in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts about maybe Kyle Busch and Brexton Busch sharing a ride? Could you maybe see Kyle Busch go back to the Truck Series full-time to complete the sweep of winning a Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Championship? No one in NASCAR history has ever done that. That could be something that Kyle might be chasing in his final stretch in NASCAR.